Good morning, everyone. I'm Mayor Ralph Becker, and I'm pleased on this beautiful spring day to invite you to the City Council building, where we are proud to announce the culmination of work that has led to the public release of the Status of Women in Salt Lake City report. This report has been the work of a lot of people now over quite a period of time, led through our Human Rights Commission and Yolanda Francisco-Nez. And I can tell you that the labors of their work, which I have been following now for a couple of years, really offers a great opportunity for us in Salt Lake City, and really broader than Salt Lake City, to understand and realize what we need to do and what we can do and should do as a community and as a region to make sure that there's a level playing field and equal opportunity for everyone in our community, obviously in this case, especially women. This report has been informed by the input of over 600 women, and it indicates the need of the most important improvement in our community as it relates particularly to general safety. More than 21% of the women surveyed mentioned that safety is a primary concern in their city. General safety is generally included basic things that we all understand and think about, whether it's adequate street lighting, increased police protection and training, and facilitating workshops that focus on women's safety issues and self-defense. The Human Rights Commission Women's Committee received feedback from women in community dialogues and surveys, and is now bringing forward a set of recommendations outlined for Salt Lake City. We want to thank particularly some individuals and organizations who participated in the report. I've already mentioned Yolanda Francisco-Nez, who's the coordinator of our Office of Diversity and Human Rights, the Human Rights Commission, and the leader of the Women's Committee. Particularly noting Sarah Telespo, Representative Rebecca Chavez-Houck, who's up here with us, Heather Stringfellow, and Kathy Horvath. We look forward to the work that lies ahead to advance the solutions and expand opportunities for women in Salt Lake City. As we continue to focus on domestic human rights efforts in the capital city, I want to note the words of Eleanor Roosevelt. Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So let me turn the time over to Councilmember Joe Remington Love, and then we'll hear from our other speakers.
Hi. About 4.5 years ago, Representative Jennifer Seelig and Representative Rebecca Chavez-Houck and I were meeting on a regular basis then, along with Executive Director of Planned Parenthood's Action Council, Missy Bird, about the rising rate of STDs among teens in our city. We developed a series of strategies to address the issue, including a town meeting for parents hosted by Representative Seelig and Councilmember Christensen in their neighborhood. Out of those ongoing discussions came the idea to create a local CEDA committee. We had heard about CEDA internationally, the Commission to Eliminate Discrimination Against Women, but had not heard about it being applied locally. Missy told us about incredible work that was being done in San Francisco. Councilmember LaMalfa, you're going to like this. The San Francisco group gathered data on every issue imaginable that affected women in their city, and then they began to shape policy around it. They looked at their community through the lenses of women and asked questions. For instance, where should the streetlights go so women feel safe? Or how do women like working in City Hall? Or how can we be a better employer as a city? Or how many women are on our boards and our commissions, and so on. After Missy told us about this approach, we were on board. We brought in Yolanda Francisco-Nez, who staffs our Human Rights Commission, and a few of the Human Rights Commission board members, and asked them what they thought about this as a task for the Human Rights Commission. Yolanda brought together and Yolanda was instantly on board, and we appreciate that. She brought together key representatives from women's organizations in our community, and over the past 4 years, they've been looking at our city through the eyes of women. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words this morning because I want to thank Yolanda for taking a germ of an idea and making it happen. She didn't say we don't have the resources or I need to run it past the mayor. She knew she had your support. She gave us this deadpan look with a slight smile, and she said, let's do it. I want to thank the men that I get to serve with on the City Council who are always willing to participate and respond on women's initiatives and needs. In this case, Councilmember Christensen and Penfold spent as much time on this committee as anyone, and they were the lone men on the group. And I know the rest of my colleagues would have done the same and are anxious to hear this report. I want to thank Carrie Jones from the YWCA, who headed up the group originally and kept things moving, and Sabrina Zanguzzi, who saw it through at the end as the leader of the committee. As the only woman on the City Council, I want to say I hope one of the first and biggest recommendations in this report is that we need more women running for office. I have so enjoyed working with Representative Seelig and Chavez-Houck on this project and other projects that affect women in our community. And having the opportunity to collaborate with women this strong and smart is empowering, and I don't get to do it every day, and I should be able to do that every day. I wish, and I want to thank, so thank you for all you do in our community, and I hope these recommendations are a tool as we make policy in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Love. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate the mayor and all of the members of the council and the mayor's staff that have worked ardently over the last 2 years to bring this report to fruition. And the wonderful thing about this report is that it's not just a report delineating where we are right now, what the snapshot of the city is right now, but we provide a variety of recommendations on moving forward on how to allow women in our city to have a more rigorous voice, to be heard in terms of how what their lives look like in this city, and that they feel that they are included and respected for the contributions that they can make. I was a member of the subcommittee, I was a subcommittee leader for the political and social subgroup. We had 4 subgroups that moved forward in terms of doing the research, that is looking at literature that talk about women's activity and women's participation in their community in the areas of education, economics, political and social, and health and safety. So each of these committees looked at the literature, and then we said, but what do women in Salt Lake City feel? How are they living their lives in our community? So that's when, as Councilwoman Love mentioned, we held a variety of focus groups with women from across the socioeconomic spectrum, refugees, immigrants, students, women in all walks of life, in all their spheres of their lives, to tell us about what living in the city is like. Where are they running into challenges? What works for them? Why do they love living in Salt Lake City? As the leader of the social and political subgroup, what we found is when we held these focus groups, what was particularly compelling is the candor with which these women were able to tell us the challenges that they were having in integrating and also communicating with the city, and also where they were having good experiences. And I think that that was what was most compelling to me, is that they were candid about their responses, because it was in a more intimate focus group where they feel they could communicate where they saw improvements. So you were talking to women across all of the spheres of their lives, whether it was a young college woman up at the university and the challenges that she might see in terms of accessing health care in our community, or the safety that she felt with navigating the streets of our community. Or you're thinking about a mother who has children in our school system and the challenges that she might be facing in terms of interfacing with the schools or with the police department if there is a situation that arose where she might be encountering a police officer because of something that her child may have done. Or if you're talking about a woman who is trying to start her own business, what that looks like, how she navigates the licensing and communicating and financing and all of those types of things that a woman that is trying to navigate the business sphere. And then last but not least, if you're thinking about a woman in the senior years of her life, is she feeling safe? Does she feel connected with her community? Is her voice being heard at community councils? So, you know, one of the things that we find that is most compelling in the social political sphere is that the women that we talk to, those that are registered voters, 92% that they are registered voters, but are they getting out to vote? Those women said they voted because they want their voices to be heard. They want to say in choosing their community leaders and to see that their community leaders are reflective, both in terms of diversity of gender and ethnicity. For women who reported not voting, the primary reasons can be categorized into several main categories, including ineligibility. They may not be a U.S. citizen, but yet they still want their voices to be heard. frequent or recent moves. We have a very transient, population in the city. People move around a lot. And high levels of distrust associated with the political system. So what can we do in terms of moving forward? So what we're hoping to do is continue these conversations with women, low-income women and women across the spectrum, women of color. We all make sure that their voices are also heard. Continue conversations through surveys, through focus groups, and through articulation through various subcommittees of the Human Rights Commission. Those are some of the things that we're looking at, and you'll notice inside the report that there are some good ardent recommendations for the City Council that I know that they're going to entertain, as well as the Mayor's office. But it requires everyone. It requires everybody within our community to be a part of this process, to communicate their concerns, and to participate when we're looking at issues related to, in particular, assignments to boards and commissions, stepping forward, presenting themselves as people that can provide that voice. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Sabina Sunguzi. I'm the chair for the Human Rights Commission, and I also chair the Committee on Women under the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission is committed to working towards freedom, justice, and peace for every individual in our community, regardless of their differences. We embrace differences as assets that make our communities strong. Over the last year and a half, we have worked tirelessly to listen to the voices of women across the city, write this important report, and offer recommendations to the mayor and the city council. We have had our views on numerous issues relevant to the integration of women's rights at the center of the Commission's human rights effort. The Human Rights Commission offers the mayor and the city council a set of recommendations. Based on the research presented in this report, it is evident that the Salt Lake City should adopt the principles of the United Nations Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and this is what we call CEDAW, as a top priority. To achieve a comprehensive implementation of these CEDAW principles, the Commission recommends the establishment of a Women's Commission within the city. The Women's Commission would exist to ensure diligence in regards to women's issues and to bring action, political will, and clout to the cause of women's equality. The Human Rights Commission recommends that the Mayor's Office, City Council, and the Human Rights Commission work together to establish a timeline for the creation of a Women's Commission, and that they identify and allocate resources required to do so. The Committee on Women will continue in its current form and work alongside the Mayor and the Office of Diversity, Human Rights, and the City Council towards the implementation of CEDAW principles, together with the policy recommendation that are included in this report. Integral to the domestic human rights agenda is prioritizing women's rights and gender equality for all residents of Salt Lake City. There's importance of systematic and effective gender integration into the work of local government. The level of equality achieved in practice is important to promoting equality between women and men and in fighting discrimination against women. The action plan included in the report outlines work specific to the Commission's agenda, and the work will be carried out by the Commission's Committee on Women. We appreciate the outstanding role that Mayor Becker's office has given us, and the Office of Diversity through the Office of Diversity and Human Rights. We appreciate the City Council and other leaders and individuals who have been involved. We encourage future collaborations that will instill a degree of progress and success in achieving full equality. Today is another historic day for our city. Since 2005, the Commission has worked to achieve equality for all. Thank you for this opportunity to work towards the ideals enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedoms and promote universal respect and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Thank you so much. A copy of the report for the report we are talking now is available online, and it is on the Salt Lake City website. And if you go to the Office of Diversity and Human Rights, you'll find it there. Thank you so much.
So before we open this up to any questions or however you want to handle this, I want to note we have several members of our city council here who I know have received the report and appreciate them being here to show support for this effort. Chairman Kyle Amalfa, Member Carlton Christensen, Soren Simonson, and Stan Penfold are all here, so appreciate all of them here showing their support. As the only man up here, I just want to express particular appreciation for our Human Rights Commission bringing this forward. They have done so much in our community to advance the cause of justice and community, and really supporting diversity and opportunity in our community. And this has been, they tend to work pretty quietly, as many of us do, but when something like this comes forward, it's really the result of a lot of people working very hard over a long period of time. And I know the council and I will be taking these recommendations and looking at how we can implement them as well as we can. You know, as a man, I didn't appreciate until I was really an adult and had women bring to my attention that our lens on the world is different. And we need to account for that, not only in our own lives and in the respect that we have for the other gender in our lives, but also in our policies. So this is going to be enormously helpful, I think, for us as we move forward in both shaping policy and in helping shape how we look at our city and how we can make sure we provide for women in a way that not only is deserving, but is really necessary for us to be the kind of community we want. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved with it from that perspective as well. So with that, let me open this up for questions to any of us who are here, or if there's someone as well who's here just in attendance who may be able to help with an answer as well.
You said, you started by mentioning public safety. Is there somehow a chief finding that the thing women worry about most in Salt Lake City is safety?
Well, I mentioned street lighting, but let me ask Sabrina, maybe you could best answer this, or one of the, or Yolanda, about specific areas that you think we need to focus some more attention on. This is Yolanda Francisco-Nez, who's head of our Office of Diversity and Human Rights.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, he started by mentioning public safety. It's the only specific that I've heard so far, besides women should run for office.
Right.
Is it somehow the finding that women fear for their safety in Salt Lake City?
That is the highest finding in terms of, there are different categories listed in terms of the education, economics, public health and safety, and social and political. And so in terms of those 4 areas, the highest number of concern for women is public safety, and that's why that was noted.
So they worry more about public safety than anything else?
In terms of those 4 areas, that was the highest area of concern. Particularly, we have women who are of low socioeconomic status in West Side neighborhoods who are concerned about public transportation in terms of getting from the track station to the buses to their jobs late at night when there's very little street lighting available. And when you look at a mapping in particular of street lighting in Salt Lake City, you'll see more condensed areas with a high number of street lights in the West Salt Lake than if in comparison to what you have in West Salt Lake.
So are the streetlights the key recommendation for public safety, or are there other recommendations?
There's more research that yet has to be done regarding streetlights before the recommendation comes forward. But there are a set of recommendations that are listed in these 4 areas in the report.
You raised taxes for streetlights, didn't you?
No, what we did was, well,
Okay, you imposed a fee.
Rod, you always do such a great job of framing your question well. What we did was we were paying for our street lighting out of general taxes, and we changed that over to a fee, and then we have raised the fee.
And you're gonna raise it again?
Well, we'll see what the council and I, as we look at this, decide what to do. We actually think with the street lighting fee and the changes we've made, we really have a great ability to improve our street lighting throughout the city and have it more energy efficient. There were two pieces to that.
Now, is there anything that you've read this report, is there anything you say, I'm going to propose an ordinance tomorrow, or tonight, you're meeting tonight, right? Is there something you actually know you're gonna do? Anything?
Well, I think the one big recommendation that came out of the report that I know that we are looking at, and we'll be looking at it probably as part of this budget to a certain degree, was the recommendation that we actually have a commission on women in Salt Lake City, and how we would, so that they would give us a particular focus in that area, and then would also make sure that we had the ongoing attention. That is something I think we're going to have to look at and decide, can we accommodate with that within our existing capacity, or for a period of time, at least under our existing capacity, and then over time try to establish that. But that will give us the focus to carry out the recommendations in the report.
Ms. I apologize, Yagusian?
Sunguzi.
Sunguzi. I'll talk to you later. She said that would make sure that they followed the goals. But except for street lighting, I don't hear any goals. Are there things that you know that the commission will kick people over?
So if, I'm sure you do have a set of recommendations in there. So each of the 4 groups have put forward 3 recommendations that are going to be considered as priorities.
What's the most important recommendation? The second, next to public safety, the second most important recommendation.
Well, I think we can put them into different categories. So if you say education, because we had a group of women who looked at education, just education in its entirety. We proposed, the women who were in that subgroup proposed that they wanted to see a focus on women from K to 12 on education, to see how we can encourage girls, particularly by maybe offering after-school programs, or how we can work with higher institutions to encourage girls in K to 12, to also encourage girls, women, to enroll in our university, in our universities. Here we are talking about the University of Utah. So, under education, we've got 2 recommendations that went forth. Under social political, we had 2 recommendations that went forth. So with the social political, they also have 2. We talked about public safety because it kept on coming up. Though, when you talk about recommendations, really we have to go into the subgroups.
Okay, I'm having a problem, I'm sorry, that this is a huge effort.
Yes.
And very smart people. And a lot of people get that. And I can't figure out anything that you actually found to recommend. Is there anything that we can tell people, women in Salt Lake are like this, or women in Salt Lake are like that, or here's what we need to
Well,
do?
it
Is
says
there-
here that you said 40.1% of female-led households live in poverty. So what could be done about something like that?
Excuse me, what did you say?
40.1% of female-led
You had the
40.1% of all Salt Lake women in poverty?
No.
No.
Of women head of households.
Women head of households, which goes to all of the facets. See, the challenge with this is we need to look at this not in a myopic way. It's going to be difficult to say this one answer is going to fix everything, which is why there is a myriad of recommendations for the council to consider, whether you're looking at the educational piece, whether you're looking at the social political, which is, for example, ensuring that women have a voice on boards and commissions that are developing policies that could address the challenges that we're seeing in public safety, that could address the challenges that might occur, for example, when a woman is interfacing with the city and trying to access a business license, which might affect a woman who is looking at, we've got the education, social, political, safety, also health issues, how that, their ability to access bus lines, et cetera. So it's going to be, there are a variety of recommendations. And we're going to take each one of them at a time. One of the things that we heard, and that we heard very clearly from the women, is they want to have a voice, and how are they going to be able to articulate that voice? So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to initiate a program of women ambassadors. Because as I mentioned earlier, when we were doing the focus groups, there was a lot of candor one-to-one when you had a woman talking to a woman and saying, what is your life like in the city? What are you experiencing? So what we're going to do is take the informality of that situation where you've got women that know the women in their neighborhoods, they're their neighbors, they're people that they know and they can trust, community leaders, informal community leaders who would interface with women on a periodic basis and say, now that we've increased the amount of lights that are in the city, is it better? Or do we need to do more? So the Women Ambassadors Program is one of those things that is going to hopefully take those concerns and bring them to the City Council for implementation via ordinance.
Do you know how underrepresented women are now on boards and commissions?
I don't have that number handy.
We do-
We have that, we track that, but I don't have that number in my head. Nancy, would you mind just addressing some of the issues that were found by the business and entrepreneur piece in terms of women being able to access the city? And the economic sphere in terms of that, and, you know, licensing and issues related to that.
Well, I think to begin with, women really don't know where to go. So they want to start a business. Where do I start? What do I do? And we think we have a lot of information out there. Not only the City Economic Development and the SBA and the Women's Business Center and the Chamber and the Vest Pocket, they're all organizations out there working to help women that would want to start a business. But the women don't know those groups exist or how to access them. And I think in many cases they're intimidated by going to the Chamber of Commerce. It's that beautiful building across the street from here, and how do you, what floor is it on, or do they even know the Chamber is there? And that houses both the Chamber Business Committee and the Women's Business Center. So I think it's getting access, letting women know how they can access the help and information that's available. And I think the ambassadors would be a great way to do it, as well as through community councils and any organization that's working in the local communities to help women. Does that help?
Is that a gender-specific problem?
I think it is more gender specific. It's much more difficult because oftentimes women haven't been involved to the degree as men in the business world. I mean, just think of it. How many waitresses are there in Salt Lake City earning minimum wage, raising families? For one thing, their time is limited, so how do they investigate and find the resources of where to go? And if you're a waitress in a restaurant, what kind of contacts do you have? It might depend on what restaurant you're working at, I suppose. Whereas I think men aren't so located in these low-paying jobs and are more directly involved maybe that would be my estimation of it. So I can't say that there's been a study to that, but I know how many, that there are many women working low-level jobs in Salt Lake City trying to get by raising families.
Just state your full name and your role.
Yeah. And I'm Nancy Mitchell, and I was on the Economic and Business Committee here for the larger committee.
Okay, some other questions? Thank you all. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate all of you for taking on this effort.